This is the Meaning Business Podcast, your go-to source for business tips, advice, growth, and exit strategies, hosted by Bruce Kudry and Peter Spinder. Each episode, we bring you real stories, expert insights, and practical advice to help you succeed in today's market. Let's dive in.
Welcome to Meaning Business. I'm Bruce Kudry.
And I'm Peter Spinder.
And today we're thinking about what are the factors or elements that really determine how successful a business can be. So, Pete, we've sort of thought about what are the important things and the critical things to a successful business, and we've come up with 6.
But before we jump into it, I think the thing that we want us to do is to say, okay, if you ask that question from a marketer, they will come at it from a marketing perspective, and you'll no doubt hear about, the importance of branding and brand strategy and positioning and et cetera, et cetera.
That's right.
You go to the accountant and you ask that question, they'll probably talk about things like your balance sheet and cash flow and profit and loss and blah, blah, blah.
Inventory management.
You then go and talk to, a business coach that has got a specialization in mindset. They'll talk all about, it's all about the mindset and behavior and attitudes. And then talk to a HR specialist is about culture, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So they're actually all important. So what we did was we listed all of these and went, okay, well, what are
when you say we, you mean you.
I don't like to use the word I. There's no I in here.
I say, all right. Yeah, we did.
We did it.
It's great.
With a bit of AI. But we did it. And in fact, we distilled it down to 6 core elements. And so are everyone ready for the 6 Ps?
Get ready.
So we're talking about the 6P framework for building a successful business. And the 6 Ps are people, process, profit, product, position, and planning.
Planning.
So they're the
I get canned, by the way, for always talking about planning in our podcast, but
look, it's
obviously the least important on your list.
I've got it down the bottom, but it doesn't actually mean that it's the least important. But here's the thing with planning. We were talking about this earlier. It's always amusing how people think of different things as being an importance or not. So from a business point of view, often people think planning is irrelevant because you can't control the future, etc. But imagine this. You want to go away on holidays, right? You're going to go to Europe next year. What do 99.9% of people spend their time beforehand? Planning.
You have to.
You have to, right? And they spend all this time because it's exciting and fun, and they see the result is going to be, we're going to have an amazing trip. And
they're living it before they get there. That's right.
That's right. Why don't we do this in business?
But you really need to. You need to have I got health cover?
Yep.
Have I got cash? Have I got money? Where am I going to stay? What's the time difference? Have I allowed for that?
Absolutely. So anyway, we've gone off topic. Planning's important. So the key elements and Jay, work your magic, and hopefully we have it pop up as, So we've got people, process, profit, product, position, and planning. Now, there is actually one of these that's more important than all of them, in my humble opinion, and that's people. I fundamentally, absolutely agree that people are at in the center. They're in the middle.
By the way, when I started in business in '82, I did not think that people were important.
I don't think that either in my first business.
I thought I walked in and did clean that bit of rubbish up and serve that customer and put a smile on your face, and
so funny.
People would do it.
I was the exact same. I really didn't care about customer service. Who cares? There's plenty of fish out there. Plenty of customers to come in.
Yeah.
Yes, and then you go,
Then try it without them. See how far you get without people. Yeah.
So it's these elements, and really we can deep dive into each one of them, and you can debate that there's marketing versus sales, cash flow management versus budgeting, and all these different things. But ultimately, these are the core elements that will dictate whether a business is successful or not. And what it means is, if you want to be successful in business, you want to build a viable, valuable business that you can sell for more later, you need to think about all of these and give consideration for all of these. And then you actually need to take actions that maximize the outcome from each one of these. So you got to look after your people, build the right team, etc.
Yeah.
Process, profit, product.
Can I just jump back to people for a sec?
Go for it.
So if you want to attract great people, it doesn't just come down to paying more money. Because pretty soon, if they don't like what they're doing, or the people they're working with, or the customers, or the hours, they're going to leave anyway, or be unhappy at the very least. So it's not all about just paying money. It's about really getting the right people, and there's a good way to do that, I've found. and but looking and having a great culture.
Yep.
And it's not all about just paying a lot of money.
Absolutely. And I think if we look at the other, the P's, the process, profit, et cetera, what happens in many industries is that people talk. Within an industry, business owners, mingle
Doctors.
and talk.
Yep.
You'll have staff mingle and talk. In fact, staff can now go online and you can go to Glassdoor, for example, and go, okay, well, what does that company like to work for before I go and apply for a job? And yeah, money's one component, but it's not the most important at all. Other factors, but certainly, I've seen in businesses where, for example, people have moved from one business to another, and you ask them, why did you make that move? And they say, well, because this business that I've moved to has got better systems, has got more technology, for example, or they're using something a lot better than the other business. And so there's a perception that this business is more modern and more effective as a result. So, they jump the ship. Or it might be that, in the industry, everyone's talking about how good this company's product is or service. I want to go work for that business because purely of the brand, because of the reputation that they filled. Years ago, people in the development space, they all wanted to go and work for Google, for example, or for Facebook.
Exactly. I think that's still a thing.
It's still a thing to an extent.
I do worry, though, that if I wonder if people say, oh, let's go to these guys because they've got a great product, and then someone else comes up with a better product, whether they say, oh, I'm out of there, I'm moving over to these guys now because they've got a better product, and then another product comes up.
Well, now we're really getting into the realm of, okay, well, how do we hold on to our staff?
Yeah.
If we have that.
That brings me back. So
that goes back to culture.
Yeah, and other elements like, putting the right person in the right job. And, as I said, I figured out a way to do that, which we might talk about later.
Absolutely. Now, just going to some of these in a bit more detail. So we've talked about people.
Yeah, let's go on to the other ones.
Process. So process is about how we do what we do. It's all the day-to-day stuff. The reason that's important is because if people are bogged down in the day-to-day and they hate doing the day-to-day because it's so bloody tedious and they're tearing their hair out, then that's going to cause frustration, and that's when often people jump ship. So process is important.
Well, process was never a thing. I think in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, process wasn't really a thing.
I think what I'd say to that is that in the small to medium business world, it wasn't really a thing. But when it comes to the top end of medium to large, it really was. I mean, if we think about the Six Sigma and the Lean, all those those methodologies.
Agreed.
But it's only now, I find in the past 15, 20 years that it's really started to make headway into our world.
Totally agree. But it's come up from being like the fifth most important to the fourth, to the third, to the second.
It's a critical thing. I mean, if you think about it, if you serve customers and your customer has a bad experience due to process, regardless of
how good the
people are, you're probably going to lose them. Now, a good person in your business will assist in keeping that customer. And then what they'll do is they'll come back and say, hey, listen, Bruce, just so you know, the issue with that customer was actually because of this in the process. We really need to adjust it.
Exactly right. So last Sunday, I had to change my flight to go to Melbourne, but to defer it. And I was able to get onto Virgin and instantly fix that and moved it back a week. And then later in that day, I had to move it back to the original time. Instantly fixed it. And I had to pay a fee, but that was so good. It was fantastic. So the process enabled me to do that very, very easily and quickly. No hassles.
Absolutely.
So the process there was the winner.
Absolutely. Now, the other one we've got is profit. So without money, we don't have business. So we need to be profitable as businesses. And I'm, we're going to have a discussion about capitalism and other models out there. But from my point of view, profit is absolutely good. In fact, my belief is that fundamentally society needs businesses to be profitable. Without profitable businesses, we don't have innovation, we don't have movement forward. So there's many reasons we need it. So
profit enables companies to build and acquire capital.
Yes.
And through acquisition of capital, they can do new things.
Absolutely.
Without that capital there, you can't do things.
And that's what drives up quality of living standards and things like that.
Agree. Now, so and just sorry to do it well. So Commonwealth Bank just reported a $5 billion profit. And there's a lot of people saying that's terrible, that they shouldn't make so much money and so on. And I understand that, greed is bad and lots of stuff. But without our companies making decent profits, the rest of the country, our economy does not benefit. It's good because that money doesn't just sit there and accumulate that's going to do things with it, which is good for everybody.
I think that the important thing to put in here and clarify for anyone that, is listening to this is that this discussion isn't about how profits are taxed. So if you're thinking, but all of that, and forget all that. We're not here to discuss that. This is just purely just to say
pay tax.
They should, absolutely, and that's another discussion. But the point is, we need businesses to be profitable. But importantly,
because profitable equals viable.
It does. But the profit also means, in this context, is that we pay our staff not just a fair wage, but where possible, we pay them more. We respect their skills and talents by saying, you know what, we're going to elevate you up in your position. Profit also means we're reinvesting not just back into the business, but where possible, we reinvest back into society through sustainability activities, whatever it might be.
Just the people. Exactly. And the interesting thing, though, is, and I think this is right, I just mentioned about how processes moved up the scale, and profit used to be the number one thing, and it's moved down the chart, and that's a good thing too. So profit is not the be-all and end-all, as it shouldn't be.
No, it definitely shouldn't be. But you want to be chasing profit.
Yeah.
Now, the next one is product. So without good products, again, you don't have a viable business. Now, I know that in many instances, if you're a retailer and you're just buying from a wholesaler, or you're importing whatever it might be, you're not actually dictating what's being manufactured, but it's still, you need to still be going, okay, well, what am I going to sell? How am I going to sell it? What is that product going to look like? And that's absolutely fundamental, because if you get the mix wrong, your whole business model is going to be flawed, and you're never going to make money, and you're going to struggle.
Exactly. And I think when it comes to product and process and people, we need to look forward to sort of see how we can develop our product, or how we develop our process, or what the future's going to want or need.
Absolutely.
How viable our product or process or people are going to be in the future.
Absolutely. Now, unlike any time in history, right, we're able to do things that we couldn't do even 2 years ago. So if you're listening to this and you've got a business, and actually in any business, right, what you should be doing, in my opinion, and I'm saying should, is you should go online and use AI to research what's happening in your industry. What are the trends? What are the patterns? What are people doing overseas? What's happening in the US and Asia and Europe and Africa, all over the world, to understand, understand the patterns and the behaviors, because that itself will allow you to go, okay, so this is what's happening overseas. How is that going to impact the products potentially over here in 12, 14, 18 months, 24 months, whatever. And then you can make predictive decisions on, okay, well, I'm going to buy this instead this year. We're going to invest more into this particular service this year.
You cannot sit still and just think, oh, we've got a great product. We're good. If you did that, you'd be selling Model T Fords or, Nokia phones.
What do you always say? Stagnation equals death.
Yes, exactly right.
Actually,
stagnate or die.
That's it. I was reading the other day, I didn't realize, but Kodak actually invented the digital camera back in 1972. We might need to just fact check that number, Joe, but I'm fairly certain 1972, they sat on it because they were worried that the new technology was going to eat up their traditional film technology. So that goes back to product, where product also means innovation. Product equals.
That's definitely a part of successful business.
Absolutely. Then we've got position. So position is really, this is where the marketing comes in. This is where how people perceive your brand. What do people in your business, so your staff, your shareholders, the customers, and your suppliers, what do they think of your business? What does the greater world think of your business? And is there a mismatch between what you think of your business and where you want to go and what everyone else thinks about your business? Position is critical.
Exactly. And there's some interesting positioning decisions being made by big companies right now. The best example I can come up with is Jaguar, who's kind of floundered a little bit in recent years. So in the 60s and 70s, Jaguar was a very good brand, and their market, their niche was this sort of middle-class aspirational group. It wasn't top range, it wasn't bottom, and well-engineered. And then they lost their way and they got into electric vehicles, and they've kind of lost their way. Now they're rebranding Jaguar completely, and I think it's a high-stakes gamble. Their positioning, basically they're making high-end electric vehicles to compete with Rolls-Royce.
Wow.
So it's an all-or-nothing strategy. Very interesting. But yes, we need to think about our position. Where do we sit in the market? And where do we aspire to be, and how are we going to make that happen?
Absolutely. And then position then ends up dictating communication messages. It ends up dictating the type of marketing and sales outreach, of product itself.
Yep.
So it really has an impact on everything else.
Exactly.
And then lastly,
sorry, can I just go back to that?
Yep.
Sorry. So in that, you can be high volume, low margin, or you can be low margin, high volume. I'm not talking about cars. It can be anything. It could be a premium real estate agent, or you could be selling out 1-bedroom units, lots of units of low commission, or big properties where you sell one a year and you get big commission.
By the way, that's phone's Bruce. Bruce's phone. He's a busy bottom man.
No one can hear that. And it's not my mother.
Good answer.
So that's part of that product planning, isn't it? What strategy are we going to adopt here? How are we going to place our product or our service in the market, and what are we going to be?
And then that goes back to the pricing side of things, where you go, okay, well, from a profit point of view, what is our business model going to look like? If we are that high volume, well, it's going to be one model. If we're the other version, it's another model. Or do we have a hybrid? Yeah, depends on your business.
Are you IKEA or King Living?
That's it. So it's all interrelated. And so to make that decision of, well, are you IKEA or King Living, you've got your strategy, which is planning. Planning is all about saying, well, where do you want to be in the future? How are you going to get there? What are the steps that you're going to take to get there? And your support mechanisms, whether they be the people, the process, the product, where do they fit in? And how do they, what are you going to do from a planning point of view to give them consideration?
Exactly. So the interesting thing is we've basically got planning at the bottom of the list and people at the top. And that, I think, is the right hierarchy.
Tie each other together.
You can't make any of it happen without planning.
Exactly.
You're planning the people, you're planning the profit, you're planning the process, you're planning everything to make it happen. So even though planning might be at the bottom end of the scale, it really is the foundation.
Absolutely. Now, there's a thing that I wanted to share with everyone. In 2011, my wife and I decided to go and do a bit of backpacking. So we went backpacking for about 4 or 5 months, something like that. And initially, when we started, all we did was buy one ticket from here to Singapore, stopping in Brunei on the way. And then a month later, we had a ticket going from Bangkok to Paris. And then about 3 or 4 months later, we had a ticket from Budapest to Bangkok, and that was it. No accommodation booked except for one night in Singapore. That was it. We thought, all right, we're going to roll the dice and have no plans. And it worked for a little while for us, but we actually fell back into our planning habit because we started realizing along the way that we're missing out on opportunities to see sites and do things because we're not thinking about what are we going to do, where should we go.
Ahead.
That's right. We weren't thinking it. And so very quickly we ended up actually going back into a semi-planning mentality. And this is what I wanted to say about planning. Planning isn't a rigorous set and forget thing where you say, okay, this is what we're going to do. And then that's, that's all I've got to do.
No.
Planning is fluid and evolutionary. So the point of the plan is to help keep you on track. But sometimes it means that the track is going to go left and then right, and you can go up and down.
Exactly right.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The point is you're adjusting your plan and you're moving towards a set goal as opposed to just, well, let's just aimlessly go around. And then you come back from holidays and people go, so you're in Italy. You're in Rome. Did you see the Colosseum? Oh, no, I didn't know that was there. You're in Paris and you didn't see the Eiffel Tower. Oh, no, I didn't know that was there. That sort of thing.
You miss out.
You miss out.
So, underneath all those things, planning is critical and fun and you don't have to stick to it. And, but if you have these elements in your plan, the people, the process, the profit, the product, I missed one. Profit, wasn't the second last one? Position.
You got to read my notes.
If you have all those parts in your plan, then your plan's good. And these are the things that we've noticed successful businesses incorporate.
Absolutely.
And by the way, I see a lot of businesses, I'm thinking particularly now professional practices like legal and accounting, where they've got some of these things out of kilter and you look at it and you talk to the owners and you think, all you got to do is change this one thing, it all comes together. So not only have Peter and I seen businesses where they've got all these elements present, but sometimes it's quite evident that all they need to do is just tweak this one thing and everything else will fall into place.
Absolutely. So really fundamental to all of this is that you've just got to be willing to look in the mirror. That's it.
Yeah.
You've got to be willing to look in the mirror and reflect on your business everything for what it is, because sometimes the issue is literally staring you in the face and you just can't see it. And it
Yep.
could be a rude person, it could be a bad process, it could be incorrect pricing, it could be the wrong fit product, it could be that you believe yourself to be this, but the market thinks something else, or it could simply be that you're running around like a headless chook because you haven't got a plan, you don't know what's happening.
Or basically there's no profit.
That's it.
You can have all the other bits. You've got a great product and great planning, but there's no profit here. So
That's it. But interestingly, if you do all of those, typically the profit tends to follow.
yes, and that's critical, as we were saying before.
Awesome.
So that's an interesting checklist of the 6 Ps.
The 6 Ps. So
I'm
people,
gonna-
process, profit, product, position, planning.
Yep.
Try and say that after a couple of glasses of vino.
All right. Well, I hope everyone got something out of that today. I'm going to pee off and I'll leave you later. See you later.
Love it. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.